In 2022, I spent in Denmark a total of 281,000 Danish krone. I know it for a fact, as I have tracked every single expense, big or small, I have had for my entire adult life. I'm a total nerd. I want to now break it all down for you, so you have a perspective of how much you can expect to spend and save also when you move to a city like in Copenhagen. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Mario and I am passionate about financial independence. In this channel, I help people living in Denmark to save money, invest well, and live a rich life. And for perspective, I am married and I have 2 little kids. We divide the cost in the family with my wife 50-50. We both have jobs that pay roughly the same. That's the way we do it for many years now. What I'll show you now is my share of the costs. You can multiply what I'll show you now by 2, so you can imagine how much are the costs for the full family. I'll start with the fixed cost. And in the fixed cost, you'll see that the biggest cost by far of the whole budget is housing. And housing accounts for 33.2% of our family's costs. This is broken down in multiple sub-items. Number 1 is the air for renting. So that's 1,803 I pay from my pocket each month. We actually have a quarterly bills, but you get the point. And there is the cost of like having this flat and paying for the maintenance of the flat and so on to the ownership association. And that includes like the garden over there. This number is relatively high, I would say, for what this is a own apartment, 103 square meters in Islandsbrugge. But again, we get a really nice perks in this building and that's what you pay in this number here. On top of that, we have the mortgage interest. So that's 3,533 out of my pocket each month. Again, paid quarterly, and you want to see the whole cost, you multiply by 2, then you have my side and my wife's side. The setup here that I have put together myself for this flat is that I only pay interest on my mortgage, I don't pay the principal. The reason for this is that still for me, the mortgage interest is low, and I rather spend the money that I should be putting in the principal invested in stocks. And that has gone pretty well, except for last year, but most of the times that worked okay for me. And that's how our, let's say, owning the flat is relatively cheap. On top of that, I have the items cut. So this is the tax we need to pay for the house. There are actually 2 taxes you need to pay for housing. One is paid out as a bill, which is the one that you see here. And the other one is paid as part of your salary. So it's kind of not linked here. It's somehow connected to how much money I get in my pocket after taxes. And on top of this, we have the utilities. So we have internet, which is 128, then electricity with 349. This includes some months that internet and some months that electricity was cheaper than what it ended up being after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the gas situation in Europe. And also note that we traveled quite a bit last year, which means that we were not at home and using the electricity as much as some other people might. And last point we have is insurance. So we have insurance as well that covers if someone comes in and steals stuff from our house, if the house burns down, if there are water leakages, things like that, that basically cover our tail risks. And for that little price of 89 krona, I think for my end is much worth it. Link to one of my recommendations on insurance in the video description. No, they're not sponsoring this video, but yeah, why not? So again, that's 6,396 krona. On top of that, we have the child fixed costs. As I said, I have 2 little kids. By the time I'm recording this video, 3 and 0 years old. And that means that only one of them is going to the kindergarten, which is this cost over here, 1,623. Again, multiply by 2, so you know how much we pay for the whole family. This is just my share. And then we also have the children's subsidy, which is, again, because now we have 2 kids, a bit higher than when you just have 1 kid, which means it's money that the government pays you when you have children, which means that the cost of having the 2 kids for last year in terms of fixed cost was just 541 krona for me. Okay, we're gonna get also into the other side over here when we have over here, we have some more children related costs. Again, in terms of fixed cost, these are the things that bills come in every month and we need to pay them regardless if we're using them or not. We traveled for a few months, we still had to pay for the kindergarten. Otherwise you lose the spot and you don't want that. The other fixed cost, which technically is a variable cost, but I mean, if you don't eat, you're not gonna last very long here. We have groceries and living expenses. And that amounted to me on 5,102 Danish krona per month on average. Some months more, some months less. I'm gonna show you in a minute, like the more detailed breakdown of this. But think about groceries, eating out, going to the hairdresser, things like that. That's the average that we spent myself. Then it means that as a family, we spent around 10,000 krona on this. Again, living 2 people and 2 children. Then I have the subscriptions. We don't have any shared subscriptions in the family. We don't have Netflix. We don't have like all these type of things. I do have some myself. I pay for iCloud to have like this photo storage, and I pay from my Argentinian card, don't tell anyone, Spotify and YouTube. Which means that because I pay them from my Argentinian card, they cost like 1/10 of what they cost in Denmark. So far they didn't cut me or didn't kick me out of the program. So that's why these numbers are artificially low. And then I have the ECASE, which I have made multiple videos on. Is this unemployment insurance, which means that if I get fired, I will get in hand like what, 12,000 krona, stuff like that, for 2 years, which is very nice because as you can see, my fixed costs are around 12,000 krona, which means that if I get fired and I have the ECASE, this is covered and I don't need to live from my savings. I hope I don't get fired, and I'm working towards not getting fired, but just to have your tail risk like this covered, for me it's invaluable. And again, for just 2.5% of my like yearly budget, completely worth it, I would say. So this is the breakdown of my living expenses. I have been using the app Spendy for God knows many years. It's super good. I use it, as I said, to track every single big or small expense. So this number that you saw over there of 5,102, that is basically like this number divided by 12, divided by or adjusted by how much my wife and myself have been paying. Because I put my own expenses, she puts her own expenses in somewhere else, and then we use a splitwise to know how much at the end of the month I need to pay her or she needs to pay me. But as you can see, this big budget number that you have seen so far was mostly groceries. We spend a lot on food, but again, like 2 people, 2 children, we eat a lot and we like to eat good food, so that's expensive. Eating out, we don't eat out so much, but I mean, it's so expensive that like, okay, no, that's it. Transportation, that's mostly when I top up my Record, and then the rest are just tail things. Snacks, and like there could be like I just get a croissant on the way to work, and like when it comes to beauty, there will be like hairdresser or like getting some treatment like a massage and so on. And a lot of the other things are just small little things here and there, which I mean still amount for something, don't get me wrong, but at the end, big scheme of things, it's not so bad. And now let's go into the variable costs. What I see here is like family costs, so these are the ones that I pay my share of. These are the child-related costs. So I said like the ones over here are like the fixed costs for the children, but these ones are like how much we actually pay as running costs, meaning buying stuff, buying toys, you name it. And that number was 1,938 krona on average. I was looking through, okay, what made up this number, and it's like, okay, we bought 1 new stroller because we have 2 children now, we bought a new baby chair because we have 2 children, the taxis back and forth from the hospital when we needed that, toys, a lot of clothes. So again, like swimming classes, like registering for the like different passports that the kids have. So there's a lot of stuff that mostly one-offs. I would hope that as we move along, this number would go down. But again, the children might want to go to new places like the planetarium or the zoo and so on, and they need new cards and so on. So yeah, it's not that bad to have children. I even made a whole video about explaining the cost of having children, but yeah, that's the number. And then we have the house-related costs. That's 468 or 67, excuse me, per month. And that is like, for instance, we put new blinders last year, we put some new light here and there, so not a lot, but we put some things. And I'm Argentinian, I can't do basically any handwork, so if there's nothing on this corner of the house or anything in the wall, it's because I just can't help it. I can't even drill a hole, so we need help for that. And then important for us, and it's a big piece of our budget, it's almost 10%, is a cleaner and a babysitter. We have 2 children, we have fancy jobs. I like to run this YouTube channel as well. I like to read books, hang out, meet friends. You don't really have time for everything. And the way I make it work myself is that work with my wife, that we have a cleaner coming every week and we have a babysitter coming twice a week to look after the children, and the children love her and the children like make things dirty, so we have a cleaner that also comes for that. That amounted just my share to 1,628 krona. Again, expensive, but again, like when time is at the premium, it's worth spent. And the last piece are the personal costs. I think the least relevant for someone that wants to move in Denmark is like, okay, what is this? Just for reference, clothes, spent on average as a month 466. If you buy a fancy jacket in Denmark, that's basically will get you covered for the whole thing, but there's always something else. Other costs, that's 1,399. That was some new tech that I got that was like nice. I got this new watch, I got this and that, some gifts for my wife. That's where it goes. Guitar classes, average 200 krona a month. I'm taking these classes via Zoom with Argentinian teachers, a lot cheaper than if you had the classes in Denmark, which likely would cost per minute, something like this. So, you know, that's one of the benefits again of, you know, relying on like something like that. And the last bit, that was definitely one of the one-offs for last year, was the like especially other costs. I made the exchanged my driver license from Argentina license to the Danish license after God knows how many years. I was procrastinating, hoping that rules would change. They didn't. So I had to do the exams again, and that cost a lot of money. And that's the number that you see here, which gives me a total of variable cost of 6,692 krona. So you can see it's mostly fixed cost, and the variable costs are relatively reasonable. But when you add up everything, so we get to 19,281 Danish krona. So this is the average cost per month for a guy like me, again, that just my share of the cost. So if you want to see how much we spend as a whole family, you need to double that, which is very scary if you think about it. But again, we have 2 incomes. I don't think we're even splurging too much. Yeah, maybe on this one we're splurging, maybe we're splurging a little bit on this. But just to show that, yes, you can earn some good money in Denmark, but it's a very expensive place to live, even if you don't live whoa, going crazy. Just 2 notes and then a reflection. So not included in this breakdown were our travel costs. We, and myself as well, travel a lot. So I have been to over 130 different countries. Was 10 or 15 countries last year. Not many new, but still a lot of countries. We traveled over 2 months if you add everything up. And my wife as well, she loves traveling. So I didn't add those here because I don't think they're relevant to you and they're not Denmark specific, but that amounted to a lot of money. And then I also run a business. So that's this YouTube channel, my courses. I normally have a job, so that's my main source of income. But because I have this business, means that a lot of things that would be an expense to normal people, like if you buy a new computer or you buy a new camera, those are business expenses for me because I actually use the computer to shoot these videos and I use the camera to make these things happen. So these are business assets for me. So they go into a separate spreadsheet, the separate numbers. And the last note on the inflation times, you could say that this number, 19,281, is wild for me. It has been the highest ever for us as a family, for me personally. I know it's still in the low end because I know a lot of people spending a lot more. Again, as I said before, there's certain things that for me, for example, paying for time, paying for convenience, when I can use that time to shoot videos like this and then make money, is definitely worth it. Yes, you can get this number lower, but again, I don't know how much so. Then I expect this number to be a little bit higher in 2023 as some of our loans will be higher, so that some part of my mortgage will have interest adjustments and will go more expensive. But again, as I said, so far we have used the money to invest. Now we have a big portfolio. Maybe we decide to pay a big chunk of the mortgage off and close the investments. That's something I need to think through the next couple of months. Most importantly, this, relatively speaking, low cost of living means I can invest a good chunk of my earnings. And in this video over here, I explain exactly what is the best approach to get started.